I've been bankrupt for 3 years, and those 3 years have been a complete waste. When we were getting divorced, my ex-wife, Ava, was adamant about fighting me for custody of our son. With a look of absolute certainty, she proposed, "Why don't we just ask our son what he wants?" My son, David, looked down at his phone, then gave me a quick, indifferent glance. "Are you guys for real this time? Is it really happening?" "Yeah," I nodded. "It is." "Oh." He went right back to his game, his voice so calm you'd think he was talking about strangers. "I'll stay with Dad," he said. "As for the assets, make sure you give him a bigger share. Otherwise, I'm worried he won't be able to support me later on." His mother dragged him into the bedroom. I instinctively moved to follow, but the door slammed shut right in my face. I could hear Ava's strained voice from inside, trying to keep her anger in check. "David, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you sure you want to stay with your father? Don't say I didn't warn you. He's been bankrupt for 3 years. Do you honestly believe he can take care of you?" David's detached voice drifted through the door. "Yeah, it doesn't really matter who I live with. The main thing is, you've already found someone else, haven't you? If you brought me to your new house, would Mark be okay with that? Would his family be happy? I'm just trying to think about what's best for you." His words clearly struck a nerve, and Ava was left speechless. The mention of her new life made her visibly uncomfortable. After that, their voices dropped to a whisper, and I couldn't make out anything else. A throbbing pain started in my temples. I stumbled and collapsed onto the living room sofa, rubbing my head desperately, trying to get some relief. But the more I rubbed, the worse the pain got, and my thoughts spun into a tangled mess. I don't know how long I was there before the bedroom door finally opened. Ava walked over and stood in front of me, her expression a complex mix of emotions. Her brow was furrowed, but I could see a flicker of genuine concern in her eyes that she couldn't quite hide. She handed me a glass of water and a pill. "David can stay with you," she said. I groggily lifted my head as she continued. "The car and the house, you paid for them when we got married, so you can keep them. I've been managing our finances all these years, and honestly, there isn't much left. I'll leave you with $500,000, and I'll take what's remaining. If you agree, we can go to the courthouse tomorrow and file the papers." I just stared at her, stunned. I was the one who had asked for the divorce, but now that it was actually happening, I felt a wave of hesitation. For years, Ava had handled all our finances. After my company went under, I asked her for some money to tide me over, but she claimed it was all gone, spent on me and David. Before I could even respond, David cut in. "Don't give Dad the car." I snapped out of my daze, a bitter smile forming on my lips. Of course, he was on his mother's side. But then he added, "Dad can't even drive. After he went bankrupt and the driver left, the car's just been sitting in the garage collecting dust. Mom, you might as well just give it to Mark. Besides, with his driving skills, he'd be a menace on the road. It makes more sense to just sell it. The car's worth at least $100,000, and the house is worth $200,000. That would be a much fairer split." Ava gave David a long, searching look, but he just shrugged as if it was no big deal. She turned back to me. "Then it's settled," she said. "See you at the courthouse tomorrow at 9. The door closed behind her. I let out a long, slow breath. With Ava gone like that, she would probably never set foot in this house again. We'd been together since college. What we had back then was so simple and real. I always believed we'd grow old together, hand in hand. I never imagined it would come to this. "Dad," David's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "I'm hungry. Did you make anything to eat?" I quickly pushed myself up, rubbing the back of my neck. "I'll go make something right now." He sounded almost pitiful. "Dad, please stop torturing us with your cooking. You're about to get a huge payout. Can't you just take me out for a decent meal for once?" So I took David to a Korean barbecue place near our apartment complex. He grilled a piece of pork belly, wrapped it in lettuce, and handed it to me. "Dad, it's all you can eat. Make sure you get your money's worth." "Okay." I put the meat in my mouth, but it tasted like cardboard. I couldn't seem to swallow. My head was swimming with all those articles you read online about the psychological damage divorce inflicts on a child. After a moment of hesitation, I chose my words carefully. "Son, even though your mom and I are splitting up, she's still your mother. Whatever happened between us, don't hold it against her." "I don't," he said without looking up, flipping a chicken wing on the grill. And you shouldn't hold a grudge either, Dad. Hating someone is exhausting. It'll ruin your appetite. He sat across from me, and through the thick, swirling smoke from the grill, I couldn't quite make out the expression on his face. The next morning, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, just staring into space, my mind completely blank. David knocked on the door. Dad, it's almost time. We need to get going or we'll be late. I was speechless. Why did it feel like he was more eager for this divorce to happen than even his mother was? I pulled the door open and gave him a suspicious look. Why aren't you in school? He looked at me with an odd expression. Dad, it's July 1st. Summer vacation started last week. I'd been in such a fog for the past month that I'd completely forgotten. A wave of guilt washed over me, and I reached out and ruffled his hair. I'm sorry, son. He tilted his head and grinned. If you're really sorry, you can make it up to me by taking me on a trip. Let's go to the beach. We could go scuba diving and eat tons of seafood. He even flashed me a peace sign. I couldn't help but laugh. You got it. Just like that, the dark cloud hanging over me seemed to lift a little. Just then, Mark and Ava walked up together. We weren't even officially divorced, and here they were, parading around like a happy couple right in front of me. David greeted him without missing a beat. Hey, Mark, didn't expect to see you out in this heat. What's the plan? Marrying my mom the second the ink is dry? You can't do that. You should at least give a month, you know? Mark was stunned, glaring at David through gritted teeth, but before he could say anything, David had already turned to Ava. Mom, I don't mean anything by it. I'm just worried you'll get taken for a ride after the divorce. What if Mark doesn't end up marrying you after you've invested all that money in his company? It would all be for nothing. You'd be out the money and the man. I'm just looking out for you. There was a clear double meaning in his words. Ava nodded instinctively and shot a quick glance at Mark, her eyes filled with a flicker of some unreadable emotion. Mark quickly jumped in. Ava, don't listen to him. He's just talking nonsense. You know I want to marry you more than anything. My company is your company. I'll wait for you in the car. We can talk more later. We submitted the divorce application, which started the 1-month mandatory waiting period. A few minutes later, Mark pulled the car around. Ava rolled down the passenger window and called out to us, her tone a mix of feigned politeness and provocation. Need a ride? I was about to say no, but David had already strode over and yanked the back door open. Come on, Dad, get in. It's scorching out here. I had no choice but to follow him into the car. Mark looked completely exasperated. David and I sat in the back, while Ava took her place in the passenger seat, a spot that used to be so familiar. Mark took a few deep breaths to compose himself, then asked Ava in a soft voice, Honey, where should we go to celebrate? David immediately leaned forward, cutting him off. Hey, Mark, we should go to the Panda Garden. It's my dad's favorite place. He used to take Mom and me there for every special occasion. I could see Mark's face fall in the rearview mirror. It was a petty thing to enjoy, but I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. David leaned back in his seat, twisting the knife. So, Dad, where are we going on that trip? Instead of the beach, how about we go to Austin? I hear it's a great place to meet people. Maybe I can even find myself a new mom there. Ava's expression soured. You're going on a trip? She asked, her eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. I just nodded. Yeah. I had no desire to talk to them, so I turned to look out the window. But Mark wouldn't let it go. A trip sounds nice, but there's not much to do in Austin. You should go to Miami Beach instead. I have a friend who owns a hotel right on the water there. David leaned forward again. Great idea, Mark. And when your friend asks who recommended the place, I'll just tell him it was my mom's new boyfriend, the one she picked out for me behind my real dad's back. I burst out laughing, not even bothering to look at Mark's thunderous expression. In the end, David and I did go to Miami Beach. As he put it, an opportunity like this is too good to pass up. The kid was so excited he filled 3 whole pages of a notebook with our itinerary. I didn't want to let him down, so I did my best to keep up with his plans. A 13-year-old boy has an endless supply of energy. We spent our days skydiving, surfing, and scuba diving, and our nights exploring the boardwalk and catching crabs on the beach. By the end of each day, I was so bone-tired I'd pass out the second my head hit the pillow. I was too exhausted to even think about wallowing in my post-divorce misery. When we got back from Miami Beach, I was planning to take it easy for a few days. But I'd barely had a chance to catch my breath before he started critiquing my cooking again. "Dad, your food is actually pretty good," he said. "There's just not a lot of variety." I shot him a look. "You should be grateful you have anything to eat at all. And you're complaining?" He scratched his head and gave me a sheepish grin. "I'm not complaining. It's just a little boring. If you made more stuff, I bet I'd grow to be over 6 feet tall." "Get out of here," I said, giving him a light tap on the cheek, but I was smiling. It finally dawned on me that he was doing it on purpose, keeping me busy so I wouldn't have time to feel sorry for myself. I may have terrible taste in wives, but my son is a true gem. With a kid like him on my side, what was there to worry about? I decided it was time to find a job. Even with the settlement money, I knew it wouldn't last forever once the bills started coming in. David's tutoring alone cost a fortune each year, not to mention all our other living expenses. If I just sat around spending my savings, I'd be broke before I knew it. After being a business owner for over a decade, then doing nothing for the past few years since the bankruptcy, I honestly couldn't think of a single marketable skill I had. I figured I'd start with something simple, just to get back out there, and then look for something better later on. I told David what I was thinking, since my getting a job would mean I'd have less time to look after him. He thought about it for a second. "I totally support you getting a job, Dad," he said. "But finding a job is like dating. You need a strategy." I had to laugh at how serious he sounded. "Oh, really?" I teased. "What do you know about it? You got a secret girlfriend you're not telling me about." He shot right back. "Just think about it. If you take the first job that comes along, and then a much better one shows up, what do? Do you quit? Do you try to stick it out, or just make the switch?" He had a point. If I just settled for the first thing I found, I'd have to deal with taking time off for interviews and going through the whole resignation process all over again when something better came along. It was a headache just thinking about it. Seeing he had me, David pressed his advantage. "So, there's no rush to find a job. But there is something that's super urgent." "What's that?" I asked. "You need to cancel my tutoring." "Not a chance," I said without a second thought. "Dad," he groaned, looking like his life was over. "I'm not a machine. You've got me in 4 different tutoring sessions a day. I'm going to be sick from all the studying." After some friendly negotiation, we finally agreed to cancel his English and history tutors, but keep math and physics. We could always reevaluate later if his grades started to slip. "You're the best, Dad." David cheered, running a couple of victory laps around me. He even voluntarily finished an entire chapter in his English workbook. Slowly but surely, our lives started to fall back into a routine. One day, I was ordering something from a link my friend Ethan had sent me. David came over and watched for a moment, then asked, "Does Ethan make good money doing this?" "It's decent," I said, not really paying attention as I clicked the pay button. He grabbed my hand, his eyes shining with excitement. "Dad, I think you'd be really good at this." His words sparked something in me. He was right. It was time for a new chapter. My background was in commercial real estate, but the rise of e-commerce had hit my business hard. That, combined with a few other factors, caused my cash flow to dry up, and the whole company came crashing down. For a long time after that, I hated the very idea of e-commerce. But Ethan always had a knack for spotting trends. While I was wallowing, he was making a name for himself in the online retail space. Now, he was focused on a new platform for local group buys. It didn't have a huge user base yet, but the platform was simple to use, communication was easy, and it had a lot of potential for growth. The best part was its one-click resell feature, which meant you didn't have to worry about managing inventory or sourcing products. If I learned anything from all my wasted years, it was that you can't afford to be stuck in the past. If you can't beat them, join them. I'd always had a good sense of market trends and what customers wanted. Those skills were transferable to choosing products, managing stock, and setting prices online. Like David said, it really did seem like a good fit for me. I nodded. "All right, I'll talk to Ethan and see what I can learn." With his help, I had my own online shop up and running in no time. I was strict about quality control, only selling products I had personally used and approved. I wasn't making a fortune, but I quickly built up a base of loyal customers. Before I knew it, the 1-month waiting period was almost over. Then, out of the blue, Ava showed up and told me she wanted to withdraw the divorce petition. I was stunned. I had been the one to file, but I knew she'd been thinking about it for years. Why else would she have spent the last 3 years picking fights and putting me down every chance she got? Her sudden 180 caught me completely off guard. Why? I asked. Ava avoided my gaze and was silent for a long moment before finally mumbling, I don't want to lose this family. But my mind was flooded with memories of when I was first starting my business. I was always traveling for work, gone for days at a time. Before every trip, Ava would cling to me and say, Honey, the baby and I will miss you so much. Please come home as soon as you can. But somewhere along the way, the look in her eyes had turned to disgust and impatience. Seeing me hesitate, she stepped closer and took my hand. Honey, can we please just try again? Do you really want David to grow up without a mother? I pulled my hand away, my face a mask of indifference. I looked at her, my eyes cold. Ava, you're the one who had the affair. Now you want to pretend it never happened? Do you really think you can just walk away from this without any consequences? Something wasn't right. I asked a friend to do some digging into what Ava had been up to lately, and what he found out was shocking. Mark's business was in trading, basically a middleman profiting from his supply chain. About 2 weeks ago, he bought a huge shipment of goods that turned out to be counterfeit. The supplier had disappeared without a trace, and now his clients were refusing the shipment and demanding a full refund. I heard Ava had sunk all of her own savings into his business to try and help, but it barely made a dent. Now, she couldn't even scrape together a few $1,000s, let alone the money she owed me. It was clear now that she hadn't come to reconcile. She was trying to get out of the settlement, and she was probably after the house, too. We live in a great school district, and the house was worth a lot of money. When we first talked about the divorce, she'd agreed to my terms so easily. Maybe she'd felt guilty, or maybe she thought she was so secure with Mark that she didn't need the money. But now that all her money was gone, our remaining assets were her last hope. There was no way I was going to bail out her new boyfriend. She could forget it. The waiting period ended, but when it was time to finalize the divorce, Ava was nowhere to be found. It was obvious she was stalling, trying to drag things out. I was trying to figure out my next move when a package arrived for me. Inside was a flash drive filled with proof of Ava's affair, security footage of her and Mark checking into a hotel, and screenshots of their explicit iMessage conversations. I took a picture of the drive and sent it to her with a simple message. We can do this the easy way, or I'll see you in court. A few minutes later, she called me. James, how can you be so cruel? She cried. After more than a decade together, does our marriage mean nothing to you? It was pouring rain, and I was standing on a street corner, the wind driving the cold rain into my face. My voice was quiet. Ava, you're the one who turned your back on me first. She was silent after that. In the end, Ava showed up to sign the papers alone. Mark was nowhere to be seen, and she looked completely worn out. I'd heard his company was on the brink of collapse. The money had dried up, and he couldn't pay his suppliers or his employees. It looked like he'd bled her dry. As we were leaving, she suddenly grabbed my arm. James, let's get some lunch. I was about to refuse, but she quickly added, we can still be friends, can't we? Can't we at least share one last meal? I knew her too well. She wasn't the type to get sentimental. If she was humbling herself like this, she wanted something. I nodded, and we found a small diner nearby. She spent the first few minutes just staring at the table and picking at her nails. I didn't want to drag it out, so I said, Ava, if you have something to say, just get it over with. She hesitated, then said carefully about the money from the settlement. Can you give me a little more time? Mark's been having some. Fine, I said, cutting her off. Her eyes welled up with tears. James, She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I'll give you a year, I said, but you'll pay interest at the standard market rate. And one more thing, I added. I want you to talk to Ethan. I'm going to become a primary distributor for your company, and I'll be sourcing my products through him. Ethan had always complained about how hard it was to find good suppliers, the prices were too high, or the quality was terrible. David had overheard us talking about it, and had immediately chimed in, I know a guy who can help with that, Ethan. It was perfect timing. I've been trying to figure out how to approach Ava with a business proposition, and here she was walking right into it. After all, Becoming a primary distributor for Mark's company required a significant initial investment. Ava was clearly stunned by my proposal. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "You've changed, James. You never used to be like this." "I know," I said, cutting her off again. She was going to say that I used to be the guy who would do anything for her and David, the guy who never complained as long as they were happy. That kind of selfless, do-anything-for-love guy, that's a young man's game, I said. A man my age has learned to be more practical. I raised my glass and clinked it against hers. To our new partnership, Ava, with a steady supply of products, I quickly moved from simply reselling to organizing my own group buys. The profit margins were much better, and I was able to build a team to expand my sales network. The platform was new and offered great incentives and support for sellers. I registered my own company, hired a professional team to handle operations and customer service, and I was busier than I'd been in years. But it was a good kind of busy. I felt like I had a purpose again. Ava, on the other hand, was not doing so well. Mark's business was going from bad to worse, and the financial strain was making him increasingly volatile. I heard he'd even slapped her in public when she'd asked him about the money she'd loaned him. She'd stumbled and hit her stomach on the corner of the table. That's when they discovered she was pregnant with Mark's child. The fall caused a placental abruption. She was in a lot of pain, and she lost the baby. When Ethan told me the story, I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "I always said she'd get what was coming to her," he said. "I was looking over my monthly financials. As long as it doesn't affect our business," I said. I couldn't care less. I thought that would be the end of it, that Ava and I would finally go our separate ways. But then she started calling me all the time, saying she missed David. She even sent me a scarf on Valentine's Day. It was during his winter break, so David was the one who answered the door. He took the package, looked at the scarf, and then gave me a funny look. "Dad," he said, "are you seeing someone?" I was walking through the living room, so I took the scarf from him. It had a gold crescent moon embroidered on it. A small card with a picture of an orange cat fell out. It read, "Flowers may fade, but the moon is constant, just like our two hearts." I remembered it instantly. It was the same thing I'd written on the card the first time I ever gave Ava flowers. But the flowers had long since died, and so had the sentiment. I threw the scarf and the card into the trash can. David just stood there for a moment, then asked, "Dad, is Mom trying to get back together with you?" I decided it was time we had a serious talk. I motioned for him to sit on the sofa. "Son," I said, "you might think this is selfish of me, but there's no going back for your mother and me. It's over." He shook his head and smiled. "Actually, Dad, I'm happy to hear you say that. You have to remember, you're a person first and my dad second. Your happiness is the most important thing." His words gave me the confidence I needed. I decided to meet with Ava and set things straight once and for all. I asked her to meet me at a restaurant near our building. As I was leaving, David insisted on coming with me. I tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. It was the first time I'd asked to see her since the divorce. She'd clearly made an effort. She was even wearing a white dress I bought for her years ago. She stood up excitedly as we walked in. "James! David, you're here." David looked her up and down, a smirk on his face. "Wow, Mom, you're not looking so great. You look exhausted. What's the matter? Can't Mark afford a housekeeper? You never had to lift a finger when you were with Dad. You must really be in love." Ava forced a laugh. "I've just been a little tired lately." David nodded sagely. "That's why it's so important to make good choices. You don't get a second chance if you mess up, right, Dad?" Ava's fake smile faltered. David ordered a few of our favorite dishes, then sat down next to me and pulled out his phone. I gave him a look, and he immediately held up his hands. "I'm not playing games. I'm just checking messages from my teacher." "Oh, well, I was going to say you could play for a bit." "You're the best, Dad." Watching his banter back and forth, Ava's eyes started to tear up. She wiped them away as she piled food onto David's plate. "It's been so long," she said, "since we all sat down for a meal together as a family." I put down my chopsticks and looked at her. "Ava, Before I could finish, a figure rushed toward our table and slapped her hard across the face. It was Mark. He was screaming hysterically. "Ava, have you no shame? Is this what you do? Just cheat on everyone? You're my wife now. Stop throwing yourself at other men." Ava clutched her cheek. shouting back, "What do you want from me? You took all my money. Just leave me alone." "You have a nerve to talk about money," he yelled. "You're bad luck. You still owe me." He was spewing venom. "None of this would have happened if it wasn't for you. I'm drowning in debt, and you're out here having a nice, happy dinner." The next thing I knew, he'd grabbed a bowl of soup from the table and hurled it at me. David lunged in front of me, and the hot liquid splashed all over his chest and arms. His skin instantly turned a raw, angry red. I shoved David behind me and punched Mark square in the chest, sending him stumbling backward. I was frantic. "Are you okay?" I asked David, grabbing his arms. "Does it hurt?" "Let me see." I didn't care about Mark or the stares from the other diners. I was just focused on David. "Dad, I'm okay," he said, trying to calm me down. "The soup wasn't that hot. It's just a little red. It didn't even blister." I could see he was right, and I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Mark's face was contorted with rage. "James," he bellowed, "Ava is my wife now. You think I don't know what you're trying to do? You're pathetic." I was about to fire back when I caught a flash of silver in his hand. I shoved David behind me just as a searing pain shot through my side. Through a hazy blur, I saw David land a solid kick that sent Mark sprawling. As everything started to go dark, a strange thought crossed my mind. All that money I'd spent on his Taekwondo lessons had been a much better investment than tutoring. I don't know how long I was out. I came to, hearing David muttering beside me, "Trying to be a hero when you can't even fight. I've got a mountain of homework, and now I have to hang around this hospital taking care of you. How are you going to make it up to me?" I think 3 straight days of unlimited screen time is a good start. The word phone was like a jolt of electricity. I shot up in bed. "David, don't you even think about it. Are you trying to get grounded?" He just stood there, grinning at me like a sly fox who just won a prize. A nurse came in with a tray. "Oh, good, you're awake," she said. "You need to make sure you're eating regularly. Your blood sugar was dangerously low." I was speechless. Low blood sugar? I avoided David's gaze, feeling a flush of embarrassment. He was looking at me with a smirk. "If your blood sugar hadn't been so low," he said, "do you really think a butter knife would have been enough to knock you out?" I struggled to maintain some semblance of fatherly authority. "I was just really angry. You wouldn't understand. As they say, you don't stand near a crumbling wall." After that whole fiasco, I was determined to stay as far away from Ava and her drama as possible. As the 1-year extension on her payment was coming to an end, I had my lawyer send her a formal notice. I wasn't worried about getting the money. After all, her husband Mark still owed my company a significant amount. The money was in my account the next day. I then had my team draft a notice that we would not be renewing our distribution contract, and I went over all our accounts and inventory one last time. Thanks to the good reputation I'd built and the platform's growing popularity, my business was thriving. I had suppliers and even manufacturers reaching out to me directly. Losing Mark's connection didn't affect me at all. To be honest, if he lost my business, he'd be in even worse shape. Ava had been calling me nonstop, and I finally got so fed up I just blocked her number. She even showed up at my house, but I'd already taken David to Austin for a few days. We were just about to board our flight home when my phone rang. It was Mark. Before he could even start shouting, I cut him off. "Mark, you're always so convinced I'm trying to steal Ava from you. But look at yourself. Look at the mess your life has become. I didn't do this to you. You need to take a good, long look at who's really responsible for the situation you're in." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then he hung up. Their little drama was far from over, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. All I hoped was that they would stay together and make each other miserable for the rest of their lives. At the start of the new school year, I went to David's parent-teacher conference. His teacher announced the final class rankings from the previous semester. David's grades had always been pretty average, usually somewhere in the middle of the pack. But when I saw his report card, I was stunned. He'd jumped into the top 200. He'd even gotten the 3rd highest grade in his English class, and that was one of the tutors we'd canceled. His teacher told me, "He has so much potential. If he keeps this up, he'll have no trouble getting into a top high school." I was so thrilled I think I shook her hand for a solid minute, just thanking her over and over. I was practically floating as I left the school. David shot me a look of disgust. "Dad, could you be any more embarrassing? What are you going to do if I make the top 100 next time? Have a heart attack. I laughed. It would be worth it. All I've ever wanted is for you to be successful and have a good life. He stopped and turned to face me, a serious expression on his face. Dad, you've got a long life ahead of you. I want to make you proud. I really do. But I don't want to be the only thing in your life that you have to be proud of. I looked at him, at his sharp features, and the way he'd shot up in height. My little boy was growing up. A weight I didn't even know I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. You're right, son, I said. Your dad is ready to start living his own life, too. David's story, epilogue. In my last life, my parents got divorced. My mom insisted on taking me with her. She got a new husband and a new son, and she made me call Mark Dad. I was an outsider in my own home, living in someone else's house, surviving on scraps of affection. They didn't abuse me. It was more that they just didn't really care. I'd watch their perfect little family of three, laughing and talking, and I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. If you don't start behaving, Mark would tell me, you can go live with your real father. My mom would say, it's not easy raising you on my own. Is it so much to ask for you to help your little brother? Even my little brother, who could barely talk, would tell me, you're not my brother. You don't belong here. I used to sneak out to see my dad whenever I could. He was working for a shipping company, and the work was breaking me. His back, which had always been so straight, was starting to stoop, and the light had gone out of his eyes. One time, I saw him outside his apartment, talking to a stray cat. David, he was saying, it's been a while. Your dad misses you. Later, I was trying to get my little brother's kite out of the tree. I fell and hit the back of my head on the table. And just like that, my life was over. At my funeral, everyone crowded around my mom, telling her, I'm so sorry for your loss, Eva. You have to be strong for your other son. My dad just sat in a corner by himself, completely silent. I wanted so badly to run to him, to hug him, but I just passed right through him. I couldn't touch him. Then one day, my mom, Mark, and my brother were all killed. After that, it was like my dad's soul left his body too. The wind on the roof of his building was so strong. It swept him away so easily. Don't be afraid, son, he said. I'm coming. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the year they were getting divorced. My dad was still himself back then. He just took all of my mom's criticism and insults without a word. He had no idea she was cheating on him, secretly moving their money into her own accounts. All he did was make excuses for her. Son, don't blame your mother, he'd say. It's all my fault. She's put up with a lot over the years. I let her down. I roll my eyes. If he ever said that stuff online, he'd get absolutely destroyed in the comments. Since I'd been given a second chance, there was no way I was going to help him get back together with me. But I could make sure he got the money he deserved. That I could do. I started gathering proof of my mom's affair. It wasn't even hard. She was so arrogant she hadn't bothered to delete any of her texts or plans. I just told her I needed to use her phone for a school project, and I copied gigabytes of evidence onto a flash drive. The day they were going to decide custody came quickly. My mom was so sure I would choose her. In her eyes, my dad was just a bankrupt loser. To her, family without money was meaningless. But I just gave her a look and said, calmly but firmly, I'm staying with Dad. And you'd better make sure he gets a good settlement, or he won't be able to afford to take care of him. In the bedroom, she tried to change my mind. Son, please come with me, she begged. You're my baby. No one in the world will ever love you as much as I do. I sighed, pulled up one of the videos of her and Mark, and showed it to her. Mom, I said, you're about to start a new thing. Just let me stay with Dad. I'm all he has. I didn't say it out of hatred. Not really. Love is more powerful than hate. After all, hate just traps you, eats you alive from the inside out. I wasn't going to let that happen. I was going to live my new life. My dad is actually really capable guy. He was just completely broken by his business. In my last life, his friend Ethan tried to get him to start a new company several times, but he was so devastated by the divorce and by losing me that he just couldn't do it. This time, all it took was one little suggestion from me, and he agreed just like that. He's becoming more confident, more decisive. His new business is doing even better than I thought. This is so much better. He's James, and he's the only dad I'll ever have. This is more than just a story of rebirth. It's a parable of self-redemption. The Son doesn't bring miracles, but a reminder that love is more powerful than hate, and that our self-worth should not be defined by our relationships. The Father's comeback stems not from reclaiming his role as a father, but from rediscovering himself as a creator. True rebirth is the choice to become whole, and that is the ultimate redemption we can grant ourselves.